The steel roll-up door was only half raised. 2 patrol cars sat outside with their engines running, blocking the loading lane. Officer Dale Grissom set his boot on the threshold like he already owned the place. "You know how this works," he said, tapping his knuckles on the counter. "200 a week. Keeps the inspections friendly." Behind the register, a woman in a grease-stained work shirt didn't blink. In 11 seconds, she would make a phone call that put both men in a holding cell before their shift ended. Simone Carter was 44 years old. She owned Carter's Auto and Hardware, a squat cinder-block building on the corner of Route 9 and Delancey Street, in the small town of Harlow Creek. The shop had been her father's before it was hers. 22 years of oil-stained concrete, a wall of hand tools organized by size, and a bell above the door that jingled the same flat note it had since 1998. Simone opened at 6:45 every morning. She drank her coffee black, out of a chipped mug that said, "World's Okayest Mechanic," a joke gift from an employee who'd quit years ago. To anyone who walked in, she was just the owner, a quiet woman with calloused hands and a faded tattoo on her forearm that most people assumed was a college mascot. Nobody in Harlow Creek knew that 14 years earlier, Simone Carter had commanded a 12-man Delta Force detachment through 3 deployments, that she had a bronze star folded into a drawer she never opened, or that the tattoo on her arm was a unit insignia she'd earned in a place she couldn't talk about at dinner parties. She had left the army at 36. She wanted quiet. She wanted a town where the biggest emergency was a flat tire, not an ambush. Harlow Creek had given her that, mostly, until 6 weeks ago. It started small. Officer Renata Voss came in for a routine equipment check on a Tuesday, walked the shop floor for 20 minutes, and left without writing anything down. The next week, Grissom came by and mentioned, almost as a favor, that the fire marshal had been asking questions about the shop's wiring. Simone had rewired that building herself, to code, 3 years earlier. She said nothing. She watched. By the 3rd week, the pattern had a name, even if nobody said it out loud. Grissom and Voss ran a quiet toll on 6 businesses along Delancey Street. The diner, the laundromat, the pawn shop, and now, apparently, her. Pay a weekly fee, in cash, and the inspections stayed friendly. Miss a payment, and a health code violation would appear from nowhere, or a delivery truck would get impounded for a tail light that had worked fine an hour earlier. Simone had seen men like this before. Not cops. Worse. Warlords who ran checkpoints in places with no functioning government, who taxed fear because nobody would stop them. The uniform was different. The math was the same. On the morning of the 6th week, Grissom parked his cruiser directly in front of her bay doors, blocking a customer's truck from pulling out. He walked in like he owned the linoleum. "You know how this works," he said. 200 a week. Keeps the inspections friendly." Voss stood by the door, arms crossed, chewing gum with his jaw set at an angle that was supposed to look intimidating. He was maybe 28. Grissom was closer to 50, the kind of cop who'd been passed over for sergeant twice and decided the badge owed him something back. Simone set down the wrench she'd been cleaning. "I don't pay for protection," she said. Her voice didn't rise. "Everybody on this street pays," Grissom said. "Ask Manny at the diner. Ask Dolores at the laundromat. You want your health inspection to go smooth next month, or you want it to go the way it goes for people who think they're special." "I fixed that wiring myself," Simone said. "There's nothing in this building that would fail an inspection." Grissom smiled, the kind of smile that had worked on a dozen other shop owners before her. Funny how things get found when people get difficult. He put both hands flat on the counter and leaned in, close enough that she could smell the drive-through coffee on his breath. 200 by Friday, or I start finding things." Simone looked at him for 3 full seconds. Not angry, not afraid. The look of someone doing quiet math. "You should leave," she said. Grissom laughed, short and ugly. "Or what? Or you're going to have a very bad month," Simone said, and turned back to her workbench like the conversation was already over. Grissom's face went red. He hadn't expected the shop owner to be the one who stayed calm. He tapped the counter twice, hard, a warning drumbeat, and walked out, with Voss trailing behind him, the cruiser lights flashing once as they pulled away. Not an emergency, just a reminder of who was supposed to be in charge of the street. Simone waited until the cruiser turned the corner. Then she reached under the counter, past the tray of loose screws and shop rags, to a small locked drawer she hadn't opened in 4 years. Inside was a phone, not her cell phone, a second one, government-issued, kept charged out of habit more than expectation. She dialed a number from memory. "This is Carter," she said when the line picked up. "Bravo 17. I need you to run something for me." On the other end, a voice she hadn't heard in years went quiet for a beat, then sharpened. "Ma'am, it's been a while. What do you need?" "2 Harlow Creek PD officers, Grissom and Voss. I want to know who they're really working for, and I want to know today." What Simone didn't say, because she didn't need to, was that a retired Delta Force commander doesn't forget how to build a target package. She'd spent 6 weeks quietly logging everything: dates, amounts, the specific language each officer used with each shop owner. She had photographed Grissom's unmarked cash envelope through the security camera she'd installed above her own register, the one neither man had thought to check for, because why would a mechanic have a covert-grade camera system wired into her own shop? 2 hours later, her old commanding officer called back. His voice had the flat, careful tone of a man delivering something bigger than he'd expected to find. "Grissom's been running a shakedown ring on Delancey Street for over a year," he said. 6 businesses, roughly $4,000 a month, split with Voss, and, this is the part you're going to want to hear, a third party, a county commissioner named Earl Whitfield. Whitfield's been steering city contracts to a shell company that launders the protection money through fake invoices. Federal wire fraud, extortion under color of law, and racketeering, all in the same envelope. Simone closed her eyes for a moment. Not surprise. Confirmation. "Send it to the Bureau," she said, "and send someone I can talk to who still has clearance to move fast." By 4 o'clock that afternoon, 2 black SUVs were parked outside Carter's Auto and Hardware. Not marked, not obvious. Exactly the way Simone would have positioned a support element if she were still running the operation herself. Inside one of them sat a woman named Agent Priya Osei, FBI Public Corruption Unit, holding a folder that had grown from 6 pages to 40 in under 3 hours. "Ms. Carter," Osei said, stepping into the shop, "your camera footage alone gives us probable cause on extortion. Combined with the financial trail your old unit pulled, we have enough to move on Whitfield tonight, before he has a chance to shred anything." "What about Grissom and Voss?" Simone asked. "Tomorrow morning," Osei said. "Right on schedule. Their shift starts at 7. At 6:58 the next morning, Grissom pulled into the Harlow Creek PD lot expecting a normal Friday, the day his envelope from Carter's Auto and Hardware was supposed to be waiting. Instead, 4 federal agents were standing by his assigned parking spot. Voss arrived 4 minutes later and saw the same thing, and for a moment, both men just stood in the lot, keys still in hand, trying to calculate an explanation their faces hadn't caught up to yet. "Officer Dale Grissom," Agent Osei said, holding up a folder thick enough that its weight alone seemed to answer every question he might have asked. "We have a federal warrant for your arrest, on charges of extortion, under color of law, wire fraud, and conspiracy. Officer Voss, the same applies to you." Grissom's mouth opened, then closed. "This is a misunderstanding," he finally said. "We were just collecting $200 a week from Carter's Auto and Hardware," Osei said, "among 6 other businesses. We have camera footage. We have financial records. We have Commissioner Whitfield's shell company, which was arrested last night incidentally, and has already started talking." Voss went pale. Grissom's hands, cuffed now behind his back, curled into fists that had nowhere to go. "Who tipped you off?" Grissom asked, though something in his voice suggested he already suspected. "A shop owner who used to run 12-man detachments through hostile territory," Osei said, almost gently, as she guided him toward the car. "You picked the wrong storefront to threaten, officer." By that afternoon, the story had made its way down Delancey Street, the way small-town news always does, faster than any headline. Manny at the diner heard it first from a customer. Dolores at the laundromat heard it from Manny. By the time it reached Carter's Auto and Hardware, half the block had already stopped by to shake Simone's hand. Most of them not quite sure what to say to a woman they'd known for years, as simply the mechanic, who had turned out to be something else entirely. Simone didn't make a speech. She wiped down the same counter Grissom had leaned on the day before, put the second phone back in its locked drawer, and went back to the transmission she'd been rebuilding before any of this started. Whitfield resigned from the county commission within the week, under a federal indictment that would eventually cost him a 14-year sentence. Grissom and Voss both pleaded to reduced charges rather than face trial, but neither man would wear a badge again. The $4,000 a month that used to flow quietly out of 6 small businesses on Delancey Street stayed exactly where it belonged, in the registers of the people who had earned it. Simone Carter went back to being, as far as anyone in Harlow Creek was concerned, just the owner of the auto shop on the corner. A quiet woman with calloused hands who kept a chipped coffee mug on the counter and a locked drawer nobody asked about. But every shop owner on that street understood something now that they hadn't before. Some of the quietest people in a small town are the ones who've already survived far worse than a corrupt cop with a $200 demand. If this story of quiet strength and real justice made your blood boil, and then made you smile, make sure to hit that like button, share it with someone who believes power should never go unchecked, and subscribe to the channel for more stories where the underestimated turn out to be the most dangerous people in the room. What would you have done if you were in Simone's shoes? Let us know in the comments below. We'll see you in the next one.